Billionaire's children cried non-stop on the train, until a poor girl did something incredible. The train swayed from side to side, clattering on the tracks. Graham held his backpack on his lap and looked out the dirty window. The trees rushed by, but he didn't really see them. He just thought about how he should have been rested after these 3 days away, but he wasn't. It seemed like the exhaustion had come along in his luggage, and it had brought company. Toby was on his left, June on his right. They both started crying at the same time, as if they had planned it before getting on the train. Toby pulled hard on his father's shirt sleeve. "Daddy, I want to get out of here." June kicked her little legs and made that face of someone about to cry even harder. Her light-colored eyes were red from so much crying. "I want to too, Daddy. This train is ugly and noisy." Graham sighed deeply. He had already tried everything in the last 20 minutes. He gave them cold water, a sweet cookie, and let them look out the dirty window. He even made up a story about flying cows. Nothing worked. The other passengers were already looking at them with unfriendly faces, whispering among themselves. "Guys, you need to stop. We're almost home." But the children cried even louder. Toby started kicking his small foot against the seat in front of them. June threw her cookie on the dirty floor of the car and crossed her arms. "I don't want to go home. I want to stay at Grandma's farm." A man in a grey suit turned around and scowled, as if the children were at fault for existing. A woman with grey hair shook her head in disapproval. A teenager took off her headphones and rolled her eyes. Graham wanted to hide under the padded seat. The children's crying got so loud that even the conductor walked down the aisle, looking concerned. That's when she appeared. A blonde girl with light blue eyes walked slowly down the narrow aisle. She was small, about Toby's age, and carried a brown cloth bag that looked too heavy for her. Her clothes were clean but a bit wrinkled, as if she had been sleeping sitting up for several nights. Her shoes were worn but well cared for. She stopped in front of them, balancing herself with the train's movement. Her blonde hair was tied back with a simple red ribbon that had seen better days. Her light eyes looked directly at Graham, then at Toby and June, without fear or shyness. There was something different about her, a calmness that didn't match her age. "Mister, can I sing to calm them down?" Her voice was soft and steady, different from what Graham expected from such a small child. There was no rush, no nervousness. It was as if she already knew she would get what she wanted. Graham blinked a few times, confused. He looked around as if someone was going to appear and explain what was happening. The girl stood there, waiting for an answer with all the patience in the world. Toby stopped crying for a second, curious about the novelty. June also quieted down, but continued to sniffle. Graham didn't believe this could work. He had already tried everything he knew, singing a strange child offering to help. It had to be a joke. But he looked at his crying children, then at the calm girl, and decided he had nothing to lose. "I doubt you can." The reply came out harsher than he intended, but he was too tired to be polite. The girl smiled for the first time. It wasn't a big or forced smile, but it was genuine, as if she had expected that answer and didn't mind one bit. "Oh, can I try?" Before Graham could answer, she was already moving. She sat in the empty seat in front of them, turning sideways to face Toby and June. The bag stayed on the floor at her feet. June stopped crying completely, impressed by the new girl. Toby wiped his nose on his sleeve and paid attention. The girl closed her eyes for a second, as if remembering something very important. She took a deep breath and adjusted the red ribbon in her hair, and then she sang, "Little bird, up in the sky so blue, take the sadness far away from you. For the one who's crying, stop your tears. The little bird has come to calm your fears." Her voice was clear and simple, unhurried. There was nothing special about the song. No instruments, no effects, just her voice, and soft and steady, filling the train car like a soft blanket. Toby stopped crying instantly. His mouth hung open, impressed. June leaned against her father's arm, mesmerized. White cloud floating in the air up high, like a soft, warm blanket in the sky. "Close your eyes and let the sleep come near. The little train will rock you, have no fear." The entire car went quiet as a church. The man in the suit stopped frowning and was now listening intently. The woman with grey hair had a softer expression on her face. The teenager had put her phone away, and was paying attention to the music. Even the conductor had stopped at the end of the aisle to listen. The sound of the train on the tracks continued, but now it seemed to be part of the music, as if it was the rhythm she needed. June leaned completely on her father's shoulder. Toby stopped swinging his legs and closed his eyes. "When you wake, you'll be at your stop, with Daddy and Mommy's hugs that never stop. The little bird has sung, the cloud passed on by, and the train is at the station, so good night." The girl finished the song and fell silent. She opened her eyes and looked at Graham, then at the children. She didn't seem proud or to be waiting for praise. It was as if she had just done what needed to be done. Toby was almost asleep, his heavy head leaning against the window. June was playing with her own fingers, completely calm, a small smile on her face. Graham felt a strange tightness in his chest. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't exhaustion. It was something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As if something heavy and dark had been lifted off him, making way for a gentle light. "Wow," he whispered, almost voiceless. The girl shrugged, as if calming crying children with music was the most normal thing in the world. "My mother taught me that song. She used to say a song can calm any angry or sad heart." Graham looked at her more closely now. With the children quiet, he could notice the details better. She was truly alone. No adult nearby, no family, just her, the cloth bag, and a maturity that didn't fit her small face. "What's your name?" "Josie." "And where are your parents, Josie?" The question slipped out before he could think about whether he should ask it or not. The girl looked out the window for a few seconds, watching the trees pass by. Then she turned her serene gaze back to him. "It's just me now." She said it without crying, without drama, without asking for pity, as if it were a simple fact of life, like saying the sky is blue. Graham didn't know what to say. He felt the urge to ask more, but something about her manner stopped him. Toby stirred in his seat and whispered in a sleepy voice, "She sings beautifully, Daddy." June agreed, nodding her blonde head. "Can you sing another one?" Josie smiled again, and this time the smile was a little bigger, more genuine. "Well, I can. As many as you want." The train continued to race along the tracks, loud and rattling, but now the sound didn't bother anyone in the car anymore. Graham leaned back in the padded seat and, for the first time in weeks, felt that maybe things could be different. Lighter. He couldn't explain why, but he looked at Josie and had the strange feeling that she had appeared exactly when they needed her, as if the universe had sent her there, at that moment, on that train. The blonde girl with the light eyes remained seated there, with her bag on the floor and her small hands in her lap, as if she had always been a part of the journey. And maybe, in some way he didn't yet understand, she always had been. Outside the dirty window, the trees continued to speed by, but now Graham could truly see them, and they were beautiful. After the song, something changed in the atmosphere of the car. Toby and June looked at Josie as if she were an incredible discovery. The blonde girl remained seated there, calm, in no hurry to return to her seat. She didn't seem bothered by their attention. "Do you know other songs?" June asked, still leaning against her father but with her eyes shining with curiosity. "I know many," Josie replied, adjusting the red ribbon in her blonde hair. "For my mum taught me a lot." Toby stood up from his seat, interested. He walked over to her slowly, the way he did when he wanted to befriend a stray cat or when he met a new child at the playground. "Can I sit next to you?" "You can." It began just like that, simple and natural. Toby sat next to Josie, leaving a respectful little space between them. June didn't stay behind and soon squeezed in on the other side of the girl. The three of them fit perfectly on the seat, as if they had always sat together on train trips. Graham watched everything in silence, a strange feeling growing in his chest. There was something different about his children. They were, how to put it, light, free. He couldn't remember the last time he saw them like this, without that hidden sadness deep in their eyes, without that tension in their small shoulders. "Look," June pointed enthusiastically out the window. "There's a purple cow over there." Josie looked in the direction June was pointing and smiled, joining the game without hesitation. "Where?" "I don't see any cow." Right there, next to that tree that looks like a giant umbrella. Josie pretended to search very carefully, placing her small hand on her forehead like a visor, squinting as if she were trying hard to see better. Oh, now I see it. But it's not purple. Heads blue with bright yellow polka dots. June laughed. One of those crystal clear laughs of a happy child. No, it's not. It's purple with green stripes like a zebra. Are you sure? To me, it looks like she's wearing a ballerina dress and pink slippers. The two started laughing, making up crazier and crazier things about the imaginary cow. Toby listened intently and decided to join the game too. And there's a flying pig back there, he shouted excitedly, pointing to the blue sky outside. Really? Josie made a face of genuine surprise. So what color is this flying pig? Hot pink with golden wings like an angel. Wow, that must be the most elegant and chic pig in the whole world. Graham felt a pleasant tightness in his chest, a mix of relief and joy he hadn't experienced in a long time. It had been months since he had heard his children laugh like this. Real, spontaneous laughter. Not the forced, polite laugh they gave when he tried to cheer them up with bad jokes or games that didn't work. Ever since their mother died, it seemed a part of their childhood had gone with her. They were still children, of course, but overly careful, overly worried children, as if they were afraid of bothering the father who was already suffering so much. Josie raised her small hand and drew something on the fogged-up window pane. It was a small, slightly crooked heart, made with her index finger. Look, she said, satisfied with the result, I left a mark here. Now everyone who rides this train will see it and know we were here today. June was fascinated by the idea. Can I draw too? Of course you can. The light-eyed girl drew a little lopsided flower next to Josie's heart. Toby made a strange smiley face, with huge eyes and a smile that took up half the drawing. Soon the glass was full of smaller, imperfect drawings full of personality. There, said Josie, admiring the collective work of art. Now you'll be here forever. And you too, said Toby, pointing to the heart she drew. You drew too, so you'll stay too. Josie was quiet for a second, looking at the drawings on the glass with a thoughtful expression. Yeah, me too. The train continued to sway on the tracks, but now the movement felt like a soft, comforting dance. The children talked quietly, inventing elaborate names for the drawings on the window, creating stories about who would find those drawings in the future. Graham couldn't stop looking at the scene. It was as if his children had gone back to being real children. As if a part of them that had been hidden for months had finally come out to breathe. Tell us a story, June requested, snuggling better into the seat and looking at Josie with anticipation. Josie thought for a moment, biting her lower lip as if choosing from several options. Okay. Do you know the story of the little bird who didn't know how to fly? The two shook their heads, no, interested. Once upon a time, there was a tiny little bird who lived in a very, very tall tree. All the other birds in the family flew here and there all day long, but he was scared. He thought he would fall and get badly hurt. Toby was immediately interested, leaning his body forward. And then, what happened to him? Well, one day, a very strong storm came. The rain fell heavily, the wind swayed the tree like a boat at sea, and the little bird realized he needed to get out of there quickly. But how? He didn't know how to fly. June became worried, biting her thumbnail. Did he manage to get out of the tree? You know what he did? He closed his eyes tight, took 3 deep breaths, and jumped. And when he opened his eyes, he was flying. He discovered he had always known how to fly. He had just forgotten how because he was so scared. That's so cool, Toby celebrated, clapping his hands. He just needed the courage to try. Exactly. Sometimes we can do amazing things we don't even imagine. We just need the courage to find out. Graham listened to the story and felt it wasn't just for the children. There was something in it that spoke to him too, touching a part of his chest that had been dormant, but he couldn't quite explain what. Time passed without anyone really noticing. The children played at guessing shapes in the clouds outside, sang quietly along with Josie to some songs she taught them, and invented elaborate stories about the small towns that passed by the window. It was as if the 4 of them had known each other for years, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for them to be there together. Graham just watched, with a strange and good feeling slowly growing in his chest. It wasn't just relief at seeing his children happy again. It was something deeper, more significant, as if a part of him that had been dormant for months was slowly waking up, stretching after a very long sleep. When was the last time he had truly smiled? When was the last time he felt that things could work out, that life could be good again? "Daddy," June called out suddenly, pulling him from his thoughts. "Josie knows a lot of cool songs. Can she teach us at home?" The innocent question made Graham realize that the journey was coming to an end, and he hadn't even thought about what would happen when they reached the station. Before Graham could say anything, Josie said, "I can teach you, if you want. But only if you promise you'll sing whenever you're sad or scared." "We promise," the two said at the same time, excited. "Then it's a promise. A child's promise is sacred." The train gradually slowed down. Graham looked out the window and recognized the familiar landscape. They were getting close to the city station. His heart tightened a little. He didn't want this moment to end. He didn't want all this lightness to be lost. But something else was bothering him. A worry that had been growing since he started paying attention to the situation. The girl was alone. Completely alone. She would get off the train and... then what? Where would she go? Who would take care of her? Where would she sleep tonight? He waited a little longer, watching his children chat excitedly with Josie about plans for songs and games. She answered all their questions with infinite patience, made up funny answers when she didn't know something, and treated Toby and June as if they were the most important people in the world. Finally, Graham decided to ask what was on the tip of his tongue. "Josie," he called softly, taking advantage of a pause in the conversation. She looked at him with full attention, the way children do when they know a serious question is coming. "Are you really alone?" The question hung in the air for a few heavy seconds. Toby and June stopped talking and paid attention, sensing that something important was being said. Josie looked at her own small hands before answering, as if the words were written there. "It was just me and my mom. We used to sing on the streets downtown to earn money for food." Her voice remained calm and controlled, but Graham noticed a small, deep sadness hidden behind the words. "She got sick and..." Josie paused, taking a deep breath as if gathering courage. "And now it's just me. I'm trying to find a better place to live, a city where people like music more." June's eyes went wide, shocked. "You don't have a home?" "No, well, not a real house. Not like you have." Toby frowned, worried in a way a 5-year-old boy shouldn't have to be. "But where do you sleep, and where do you keep your things?" "In different places. Sometimes in shelters when there's a spot, sometimes in other places." "It's not so bad," she added quickly, seeing their concerned expressions. "You get used to it." Graham felt a sharp pang in his stomach. A 6-year-old child living like this, alone, sleeping in shelters, singing on the streets for food. It didn't seem real. It didn't seem fair. "And you don't have any relatives, uncles, grandparents, cousins?" "My mum always said it was just the two of us against the world, that we didn't need anyone else as long as we had each other." Josie gave a small, melancholic smile. "But now I don't have her anymore, so it's just me against the world." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Graham didn't know what to say to a child in such a situation. Toby and June looked at Josie with a new sadness in their eyes, as if they had just discovered that the world could be cruel to children. That's when the train blew its whistle, loud and long, announcing its arrival at the station. "We're here," Graham said, but his voice came out strange, hoarse. People began to stand up throughout the car, grabbing their luggage from the compartments, getting ready to disembark and go on with their lives. The movement broke the intimate and protected atmosphere that had formed among the four of them. Josie stood up too, picking up the brown cloth bag that was all she had in the world. "It was really nice meeting you," she said, smiling sincerely at the children. "Thanks for letting me sing and play with you." Toby and June jumped up, desperate at the idea of saying goodbye. "You're leaving?" June asked, her voice trembling and her eyes already shining with tears. "I have to... You have to go to your home, and I have to find mine." "But we wanted you to stay," Toby said, grabbing her small hand with both of his. "I wanted to stay with you too, but..." The train came to a complete stop with a screech of brakes. The doors opened with a loud pneumatic sound. People started to get off, dragging suitcases, carrying children, moving on with their lives. Josie walked slowly towards the exit, clearly in no hurry, as if she also didn't want the moment to end. Graham picked up his backpack and helped his children up, but his mind was in a jumble, his heart heavy. He couldn't stop thinking about the girl walking around alone, sleeping in strange places, waking up not knowing where she would get her next meal. They got off the train together, in a slow-moving line. The platform was crowded, noisy, with people meeting, saying goodbye, running to catch connections. Josie stopped near the exit, looking around as if deciding which direction to take, which path to follow in life. That's when it happened. Toby and June let go of their father's hands and ran to Josie. They grabbed her legs, one on each side, and hugged her tightly, desperately, as if physically trying to stop her from leaving their lives. "Don't go," June whimpered, her voice muffled against the girl's pants. "Stay with us," Toby pleaded, tightening his hug. "Please." Josie stood still, surprised by the reaction, not knowing how to respond to the display of affection. She looked at Graham over the children's heads, as if asking for help or guidance on what to do. Graham took in the whole scene. His children clinging to the blonde girl, she unsure how to react but clearly moved, the cloth bag on the station floor. He thought of the empty, silent house waiting for them. He thought of the last few months of sadness and quiet. He thought of how his children had laughed today for the first time in so long. He thought of how he had felt alive again, just from seeing their joy, and he made a decision that would change everything. He knelt down slowly in front of Josie, getting to the level of her light blue eyes. Her eyes looked back at him, curious, hopeful, but also prepared for another disappointment. "If you want, come with us." The words left his mouth before his head had time to analyze all the implications, but as they came out, he knew they were the truest words he had spoken in a long time. Josie was silent for a moment that seemed to last an eternity. She looked at Graham, then at Toby and June still clinging to her, then at the bag on the floor as if weighing all the possibilities. "Really? Are you serious?" "Completely serious. But you don't even know me. I could be a terrible kid." Graham smiled, and it was the first genuine smile he had given in months. "We know enough. And you don't seem terrible at all." Toby and June let go of her legs and looked up with hope shining in their eyes. "Will you say yes?" June asked anxiously, clasping her hands as if praying. "Please say yes," Toby added. Josie looked at each of them one more time, slowly, as if memorizing their faces. Her eyes rested on Graham last. "Okay. I'll go." The answer was simple, direct, without drama, but it changed everything. Toby and June shouted with joy, jumping and hugging each other. Graham felt an enormous relief he hadn't expected, as if a decision he didn't even know he needed to make had finally been made. And Josie. Josie smiled in a way she hadn't smiled in a very long time. A smile of someone who had just gained a family. She picked up the bag from the floor and stood there, in the middle of the noisy platform, as if waiting for instructions on how to be part of a real family. "Then let's go home," Graham said, and for the first time in months, the word home sounded like something good, something full of possibilities. They walked together along the platform towards the exit, Toby and June on either side of Josie, chattering excitedly about everything they were going to show her. Graham followed just behind, carrying the backpack and watching the trio ahead. From a distance, they looked like a family that had always been together. And maybe, in some way he didn't yet fully understand, they always had been. The house was quiet when they arrived. It was one of those suburban houses with a front yard and a small porch. Nothing too special, but clean and welcoming. Josie stopped at the entrance, still holding her cloth bag, and looked around with respectful curiosity. "So is this where you live?" "It is," Graham replied, opening the blue-painted wooden door. "Welcome to our home." Toby and June ran ahead, excited to show their new friend everything. Their small feet made noise on the wooden floor. "Come on, Josie, I'll show you my room," Toby shouted, pulling her by her free hand. The inside of the house was simple but comfortable. It had that smell of a house that hasn't had visitors in a long time. Not bad, just a bit still, as if the air was waiting for something. Graham noticed this for the first time in months. Josie walked slowly through the rooms, observing everything with the attention of someone who has never had a real house. She didn't touch anything, just looked. There was a natural politeness about her, a respect that impressed Graham. "This is Toby's room," June announced proudly, opening a door with car stickers on it. The room had a single bed with blue sheets, toys scattered on the floor, and drawings of cars on the walls. Toby showed his favorite toy cars to Josie, explaining which one was faster, which one made more noise. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was really paying attention. "And this is mine." June opened another door enthusiastically. Her room was pink and full of dolls of all sizes. Stuffed animals took up half the bed. Josie smiled seeing the collection, gently touching the ear of a teddy bear. "They're so cute. What's this one's name?" "This is Bingo, and that one over there is Sophia." June introduced each stuffed animal, and Josie listened patiently, as if each name were important. Graham watched from the hallway. The children acted as if it were normal to have a new friend at home, as if Josie had always been part of their daily routine. "Joyce, and where will I sleep?" Josie asked, without anxiety, just practical curiosity. Graham hadn't really thought about it. The house had 3 bedrooms, his, Toby's, and June's. There was also a small office he used for work. "You can stay in the office for now. Tomorrow we'll sort it out properly, buy you your own bed." Josie nodded, satisfied. "Okay. I don't take up much space anyway." They went to the office. It was a small room with a desk full of papers, a swivel chair, and a dusty bookshelf. Graham got some clean sheets from the hall closet and improvised a bed on the old small sofa that was against the wall. "It's not very comfortable, but for tonight." "It's great," Josie interrupted, running her hand over the sofa's fabric. "Much better than where I used to sleep." She said it without bitterness or self-pity, as if it were just a fact of life. Graham felt that familiar tightness in his chest, a 6-year-old child being grateful for an old sofa in a messy office. Tomorrow we'll buy you your own bed, and maybe paint the room a color you like. You don't have to bother, really." "It's not a bother, Josie. It's what you do when someone comes to live with you." Josie placed her cloth bag in a corner of the room and sat on the edge of the small sofa. Toby and June squeezed in next to her, eager to explore more. "Are you living here with us forever now?" June asked, with that childhood frankness. "I think so," Josie replied, looking at Graham as if asking for confirmation about her own future. "Yes," Graham said, and the word came out firmer than he expected. "For now, yes." The afternoon passed quickly. Graham made ham and cheese sandwiches for everyone, while the children played in the living room. He could hear their voices talking, laughing, inventing games. It was a sound the house hadn't heard in months. At dinner time, Josie insisted on helping set the table. She moved around the kitchen carefully, asking where everything was, as if she didn't want to be a bother. "Sir, you don't have to help," Graham said, watching her carry the plates one by one. "But I want to. I always helped my mom with these things." The mention of her mother brought a brief sadness to her eyes, but it passed quickly. They ate dinner together at the small kitchen table. It was frozen lasagna that Graham had heated in the microwave, nothing special. But Josie ate slowly, as if every bite was precious. Toby and June talked about school, their teachers, and everyday things. Josie listened to everything with interest, asking questions about their friends. "Are you going back to school tomorrow?" she asked. "We are," June replied. "There's always school on Monday. What about you? Aren't you going to school?" Josie was quiet for a moment, picking at her food. "I haven't gone in a long time. We moved around a lot, never stayed in one place long enough." Graham made a mental note. He needed to sort out Josie's school situation quickly. After dinner, it was bath time. Graham picked out clean clothes for Josie, an old t-shirt of his that served as a nightgown, and a pair of Toby's shorts that were big on her, but worked perfectly. "Thank you," she said, holding the clothes against her chest as if they were a treasure. "Tomorrow we'll go to the store and buy clothes in your size. For school and for playing, whatever you need. You don't have to spend money on me. Josie. Graham knelt to be at her level, looking into her light eyes. If you're going to live here, you need your own clothes. That's how families work. The word family hung in the air between them. Josie looked at him with surprise and something that looked like hope. "Tai family." Graham realized what he had said and felt a bit awkward, but he didn't take it back. "Well, yeah, you know what I mean." Josie smiled. It was a small but genuine and meaningful smile. "I know, and I like it." When it was time for bed, Toby and June asked Josie to sing for them, like she did on the train. The three of them squeezed into Toby's bed. His room was bigger and had more space. "What song do you want?" Josie asked, fluffing the pillow. "The one about the little bird from the train," June requested. "Or make up a new one just for us," Toby suggested. Josie thought for a moment, looking at the ceiling as if the words were written there. "It's time now to close your eyes and let all of your dreams arise. Tomorrow is a brand new day, with many brand new games to play." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper that filled the small room. Graham stood at the door, listening unseen. "Sleep in peace, you little heart, for here you have a brand new start. The day was full of so much fun, and tomorrow will be a better one." Graham felt something strange and good happening in his chest. It was as if a part of him that had been closed off for months was slowly opening up. "Close your eyes, let slumber deep, dream of wonders while you sleep. And when the sun begins to gleam, we'll play again, a happy team." Toby was already nearly asleep, breathing heavily. June fought against sleep, wanting to hear more of the new song. Josie continued humming softly until they both fell completely asleep. She got up carefully so as not to shake the bed, covered them both with the sheet, and tiptoed to the door. Graham was there, standing, still listening to the echo of the song. "They're asleep," she whispered. "You sing so well. Where did you learn to make up songs like that?" "My mum taught me. She said music comes from the heart, not the head." They walked in silence to the office. Josie sat on the edge of the little sofa and looked around the makeshift room. Thank you for letting me stay here," she said. "You don't have to thank me. We wanted you to stay." "But you don't even really know me." Graham sat in the office chair, facing her. "Sometimes you don't need to know everything about a person to know they're good. You have a good heart, Josie." Josie smiled again, more relaxed. "My mum used to say something similar. That the heart knows things the head hasn't figured out yet. Your mum sounds like she was a very wise person." "She was. She was the wisest person I knew." They sat in silence for a moment. Graham realized he knew almost nothing about the girl's story, but he also didn't want to pressure her. "If you ever want to talk about her, about the two of you, I'll listen," he offered gently. "Maybe another day," Josie replied. "Today has been full enough of new things." Graham understood perfectly. He stood up from the chair and went to the door. "If you need anything during the night, my room is at the end of the hall. Anything at all." "Okay. Thank you." "Good night. Good night, Josie." Graham went to his own room but couldn't fall asleep right away. He lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the strange day he'd had. In the morning, it was just him and his children coming back from a frustrating trip. Now there was a new child living in his house. He should have been worried. He should have been thinking about all the complications this could bring. But he wasn't. He was relieved, as if something that had been missing had been filled. He heard a faint noise from the hallway and got up to see what it was. Josie was at the door of the children's room, humming softly. Toby had woken up and was a little restless. She sang until he calmed down and fell back asleep, then returned to the office without a sound. Graham went back to bed with a strange and good feeling. For the first time since his wife died, the house had sound again. Not the sound of the TV left on to break the silence, the sound of life, the sound of someone caring, a very good sound. The next morning, Graham woke up to cheerful voices in the kitchen. He went downstairs to find Josie helping Toby and June with breakfast. She didn't know where things were, but she had improvised. "Good morning," Graham said, stretching. "Good morning, Daddy," Toby and June replied at the same time, their mouths full of cereal. "Good morning," Josie said, a little shy, as if she wasn't yet sure if she could act freely. "You're up early today." "Josie made us oatmeal," June celebrated, showing her bowl. Graham looked at the pot on the stove. It was simple oatmeal, but well-made and fragrant. "Thank you, Josie, you didn't have to do that. I woke up early and so did they. I thought I could help." The following days established a new routine in the house. Graham worked in his office or went out for meetings, and Toby and June went to school in the morning. Josie stayed at home, exploring the rooms, reading books from the bookshelf, and helping with small things. When the children came home from school, the house filled with energy. The three of them played together in the backyard, watched cartoons on television, and invented games. Josie participated in everything naturally, as if she had always been part of the family dynamic. She never asked for anything, never complained, never caused trouble. She moved through the house with a gentleness, as if she were afraid of breaking something or being a bother. But slowly, she began to open up. She laughed louder, talked more, and allowed herself to take up space and have opinions. Graham watched it all with a growing sense that he had made the right decision, not just for Josie's sake, but mainly for his own children. They were completely different, lighter, happier. Toby started telling silly jokes at dinner again. June started singing in the shower and dancing around the house again. The two of them fought less, played more, and smiled frequently. It was as if Josie's presence had reminded them how to be real kids. And Graham caught himself laughing for real for the first time in months. It wasn't a forced laugh. It was the laugh of someone who was genuinely happy. One afternoon, he was working on his computer when he heard the three children playing in the backyard. They had invented a game where they had to sing while jumping rope. Josie taught new songs. Toby made up funny verses. June sang harmonies. Graham stopped working and just listened, smiling to himself. The house was alive again, full of sound, movement, positive energy, and he was feeling alive again too. That night, at bedtime, Josie sang for Toby and June as she always did. Graham listened from the hallway, as he always did. But this time he noticed something different. It wasn't just that the house had sound again. It was that it had joy again. It had a future again. It had hope. When Josie finished singing and the children fell asleep, Graham realized something. For the first time since his wife died, he didn't feel alone in the responsibility of raising his children. It wasn't that Josie had taken on adult responsibilities. She was still a child, but it was as if she had brought something that was missing, a lightness, a natural joy that made everything feel less heavy. Graham went to sleep that night with a feeling he hadn't had in a long time. Gratitude. Gratitude for making an impulsive decision on a train. Gratitude for listening to his heart instead of his head. Gratitude for a girl with blonde hair and light eyes who appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. The house slept peacefully, and for the first time in months, so did Graham. The afternoon was quiet and warm. The sun hit the front porch of the house, creating long shadows that stretched across the small garden. Graham was sitting in an old rocking chair, sipping a glass of cold water. Josie was next to him on the porch floor, playing with some twigs she had found in the yard. Toby and June had gone to the neighbor's house to play, so the house was quiet, with only the sound of birds and the wind in the trees. Graham watched Josie as she built something with the twigs. The girl was concentrated, her tongue sticking out a little at the corner of her mouth, the way kids do when they are focused on an important task. It had been almost a week since she started living with them, and Graham was still impressed by how easily she adapted. It was as if she had always been part of the family. "What are you building there?" he asked. Josie looked up and smiled. "A little house, or maybe a castle. I haven't decided yet." She went back to concentrating on the twigs, arranging them carefully. "Did your mum teach you how to do this?" "No. She didn't know how to do these things, but she taught me other things." Graham was curious but didn't want to press. Josie sometimes talked about her mother, but always in passing, as if it were a good but painful memory. The comfortable silence returned. A light breeze rustled the leaves of the tree in the garden. Josie finished her construction and admired the result. There. Now it's a little house where a happy family lives. She said this with a simple satisfaction, as if she had created something truly important. Graham looked at the twig construction and saw only scattered sticks, but to Josie, it was clearly much more than that. It's beautiful. I bet the family that lives there is very happy. They are. They sing a lot. The answer came out naturally, but it made Graham pay more attention. They sing? Uh-huh. Every happy family sings together. That's how you know they love each other. Graham smiled at the girl's simple logic, but he also thought about her observation. Do happy families sing more? He tried to remember when they used to sing at home. Before his wife died, she would sometimes hum while cooking. Toby and June would sing in the bath, but after she was gone, the house fell quiet until Josie arrived. Josie, he said, taking advantage of the quiet moment. Yes? Why do you like singing so much? The question hung in the air for a few seconds. Josie stopped fiddling with the twigs and stared at them, as if deciding what to answer. Because it was what I did with my mom. Her voice became lower, more serious. We used to sing on the streets downtown. People would stop to listen, some would toss coins into our hat, but it wasn't just for the money. She looked up and met Graham's eyes. Even when we had nothing, singing made it feel like everything was okay. Graham felt that familiar tightness in his chest, a small child singing on the streets to get food. That must have been hard. Sometimes it was, when it rained a lot, or when it was very cold. But when we sang together, I forgot I was hungry or cold. Josie went back to fiddling with the twigs, adjusting the little house. My mum had a beautiful voice, more beautiful than mine. She taught me all the songs I know. And did you learn quickly? I think so. She said I had her gift. That music was a family thing. Graham imagined the scene, a young woman and a small child singing together on the street, trying to survive. It was a sad and beautiful image at the same time. When I sing, Josie continued, I feel like she's still with me. Her voice dropped even lower, almost a whisper. It's like the music is a bridge. I sing here and she listens wherever she is now. Graham felt his eyes sting a little. The way Josie spoke of her mother was so pure, so full of love, that it was impossible not to be moved. Do you really think she's listening? I'm sure of it. Whenever I sing, I feel a warmth right here. She placed a hand on her chest. That's her telling me she's listening. They sat in silence for a moment. Graham didn't know what to say. How do you respond to such simple and true faith? Instead of words, he stood up from the chair and sat on the floor next to Josie. He reached out and gently squeezed her small hand. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Sometimes presence speaks louder than any words. Josie looked at his hand holding hers and smiled. It was a small smile, but full of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For letting me sing here, for not thinking it's weird. You can sing as much as you want here. This house needs music. It does. It really does. It was too quiet before you came. Josie nodded in understanding. Houses need music to stay alive. My mom taught me that too. Your mom taught you a lot of good things. She did. She was very smart. But her life was hard. She must be very proud of you. You think so? I'm sure of it. You're a very special girl, Josie. She smiled again, more openly this time. They heard the sound of approaching children. Toby and June were coming back from the neighbor's house, talking loudly about some game. They're coming, Josie said, standing up and brushing off her clothes. Yep, better prepare for an invasion. Josie laughed and picked up the twigs from the floor, storing them in a corner of the porch. Can I leave the little house here to keep playing with later? Of course. It can stay here as long as you want. Toby and June appeared running through the gate, excited and talking at the same time about everything they did at the neighbor's house. Daddy, Josie, June shouted. We learned a new game. And Tommy's mom made cookies, Toby added. They stormed onto the porch like a hurricane of energy, transforming the quiet atmosphere into something full of movement and noise. While Toby and June excitedly explained the new game, Graham watched the three of them. The conversation with Josie still echoed in his head. The simplicity with which she spoke of her mother, the naturalness with which she shared her memories. And especially, the way she found a way to keep her mother alive through music. Graham thought of his own wife. For months, he had avoided talking about her with the children, afraid of making them sad. But maybe he was doing it wrong. Maybe he should find a way to keep her present, like Josie did with her mother. Maybe music really is a bridge. That night, at bedtime, when Josie sang for Toby and June, Graham listened from the hallway as always. But this time, he paid attention to the words, the melody, the love she put into every note. And he understood that she wasn't just singing to make the children sleep. She was talking to her mother. She was keeping her alive. Graham was alone in his office on a quiet night. The children had been asleep for an hour, and the house had finally settled down after a day full of games and laughter. He should have been working on the overdue reports, but he couldn't concentrate. On the desk in front of him was a photo of his wife. It was a simple photo taken in the backyard 2 years ago. She was smiling, her blonde hair blowing in the wind, her light eyes shining with joy. It was an ordinary Sunday, but she looked radiant. Graham picked up the photo and stared at it for a long time. He felt that familiar mix of longing and love that always came when he thought of her. But today there was something different, a restlessness he couldn't define. Josie had been living with them for 2 weeks. 2 weeks that had changed everything in the house. The girl had adapted with impressive ease, as if she had always belonged there. Toby and June treated her like a sister. Graham had gotten used to her presence, and everything seemed to be working perfectly. But that's exactly what was bothering him. It was working too perfectly. Graham put the photo back on the desk and leaned back in his chair. The fear that had been hiding in the back of his mind finally came to the surface, real and terrifying. Was he doing the right thing? The question echoed in his head like a tolling bell. He had brought a strange child home without thinking it through, without planning, without considering all the consequences. It was an impulse, a decision from the heart that felt right at the time. But what about now? What if he wasn't prepared for this? Graham stood up and went to the office window. Outside, the street was empty and silent. The streetlights cast yellow circles on the pavement, and everything seemed peaceful. But inside him there was a storm of doubt. Raising your own children is hard enough. Raising a child who comes from a complicated situation, who has lost her mother, who has lived on the streets, that's something else entirely. Did he have enough experience? Did he have enough patience? What if he messed everything up? What if Josie needed things he didn't know how to give? Graham thought of his wife and what she would do in this situation. She always had a way with children, always knew the right words, always had that maternal intuition that he sometimes felt he lacked. How was he going to raise a girl alone? How would he handle all the things that mothers instinctively know how to do? The fear grew in his chest, heavy and dark. Maybe he had been selfish. Maybe he had brought Josie home because he and the children needed her, not because it was the best thing for her. What if she would be better off somewhere else, with a family that truly knew how to care for a child who had been through what she had been through? Graham returned to the desk and sat down heavily in his chair. He picked up his wife's photo again and whispered, "What do I do? Help me understand what I should do." The photo obviously didn't answer, but he kept looking at it as if waiting for a sign, some guidance. It was then that he heard it. Laughter coming from the backyard. Graham frowned. It was almost 10 at night. The children should have been asleep for hours. He went to the window and looked out. Josie was in the backyard with Toby and June. The three of them were running after fireflies, trying to catch them with their hands. Josie was wearing a borrowed nightgown that was too big for her, her loose blonde hair dancing as she ran. Toby and June were in their pajamas, barefoot on the grass. "I caught one," June shouted, closing her hands carefully. "Let me see," Toby asked, approaching his sister. Josie joined them, and they admired the little bug June had captured. The small light blinked between her fingers. "Now we let it go," Josie said. "Fireflies don't like to be trapped." June opened her hands and the insect flew away, blinking in the darkness. "So let's catch more," Toby suggested, and they ran off again, laughing and stumbling on the grass. Graham watched from the window, mesmerized by the scene. There was something magical about that moment, 3 children playing in the dark backyard, not caring about the time or the rules. It was pure joy, pure childhood. But it was more than that. It was family. Graham saw how Josie looked after the other 2. When Toby tripped, she helped him up. When June got scared of a noise by the fence, Josie reassured her. She didn't act like a visitor or a child being cared for. She acted like an older sister, like part of the family. Graham felt something loosening in his chest. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with a slowly growing certainty. Josie didn't need to be somewhere else. She needed to be exactly where she was. It wasn't about whether he was prepared to take care of her or not. They would learn together, as all families do. It wasn't about having all the right answers. It was about love. And looking at the 3 children in the backyard, Graham knew that love was not lacking in that house. He opened the window and said, "Hey, you guys, what are you doing out there?" The 3 children stopped running and looked up, looking a bit guilty. "Sorry, Daddy," said June. "We woke up and saw the fireflies. And I said it might be fun to catch some," Josie added, taking responsibility. Graham smiled. "Did you catch many?" "A few. Want to come see?" Toby invited. Graham looked at the photo of his wife on the desk, then back at the children in the backyard. "I'll be right there." He ran down the stairs and went out into the backyard barefoot. The grass was cool and damp, and the night air was fresh and pleasant. "Where are these famous fireflies?" he asked. "Over there," Josie pointed. "There are a bunch near the fence." Graham ran with them, trying to catch the insects blinking in the darkness. It was a bit silly, a bit childish, but it was exactly what he needed. For 20 minutes they played together in the backyard. They caught fireflies, let them go, and made up stories about where they flew. Graham laughed like he hadn't laughed in a long time, completely forgetting the fears that had been tormenting him in the office. When they finally went back inside, the 3 were tired and happy. Graham helped put everyone back to bed, and Josie sang softly until Toby and June fell asleep. "Thanks for letting us play outside," she whispered as he walked her back to the office. "Thank you for reminding me that sometimes it's good to break the rules," he replied. Josie smiled and lay down on the small sofa. Graham covered her with the sheet and looked at her for a moment. "Good night, Josie." "Good night, Graham." It was the first time she had called him by his name, and something finally settled in his chest. Graham returned to his office and looked at his wife's photo, but now he no longer felt fear or doubt. He felt determination. Josie was already part of the family. That became clear tonight, watching her care for the children, watching how they cared for each other. She wasn't a visitor or an extra responsibility. She was his daughter. All that was left was to make it official. Graham picked up the phone and looked for the number of the family's trusted lawyer. It was too late to call now, but it would be the first thing he did in the morning. The next morning, Graham woke up with the sun streaming through his bedroom window. He heard voices in the kitchen, Josie helping Toby and June with breakfast, as she always did. After the children left for school and Josie was reading in the living room, Graham went to his office and picked up the phone. He dialed the number for Mr. Harrison, the lawyer who had handled his wife's documents and other family legal matters. "Mr. Harrison, this is Graham Mackenzie. How are you?" "Graham, good to hear from you. How are things?" "They're good. Actually, very good. I'm calling because I need your help with a legal matter." "Of course. What is it about?" Graham took a deep breath and said the words that would change everything. "I want to adopt a little girl. She's been living with us for a few weeks, and she's a part of our life. I want to make it official." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I see. That's a big decision, Graham. Tell me more about the situation." Graham explained everything, how he met Josie on the train, how she was alone, how she adapted to the family. He talked about the last few days, about how happy the children were, about how the house was alive again. Mr. Harrison listened attentively. "Well, it's an unconventional situation, but not impossible. The adoption process will involve a few steps. First, we need to verify if there are any relatives who have a legal claim to the child." She said it was just her and her mother. "Even so, we need to conduct an official search. After that, the process will be overseen by social workers. There will be interviews with you and the children, home visits, psychological evaluations, Graham felt a knot in his stomach. Evaluations, interviews. What if they decided he wasn't suitable? Is it a strict process? He asked. It is. The state wants to be sure the child is going to a safe and stable environment. But from what you've told me, I don't see any reason for concern. You own your home, have a stable job, and are already successfully raising 2 children. And how long does it take? It could take a few months, maybe even a year, depending on how many cases are in the queue. But the important thing is that the girl can continue living with you during the process. Graham felt a huge sense of relief. So we can get started. We can. I'll prepare the initial paperwork. Are you sure about this decision, Graham? It's not something that can be easily undone. Graham looked out the office door. Josie was in the living room, reading a book to one of June's stuffed animals. She was using different voices for the characters, completely engrossed in the story. I'm absolutely sure. Then let's move forward. I'll contact the proper agencies and schedule the first interviews. When Graham hung up the phone, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. The process would be long and possibly complicated, but he was determined to go through with it. Josie deserved a real family, and they deserved to have her officially as part of their family. Graham went to the living room and sat next to her on the sofa. Oh, what's that story about? It's about a little bunny who got lost in the forest, she explained, showing the pictures in the book. But in the end, he finds his way home. A happy ending, then. There always has to be a happy ending, Josie said with conviction. Otherwise, the story isn't worth telling. Graham smiled and affectionately ruffled her hair. I completely agree. That night, after the children were asleep, Graham stood at the door of the office where Josie slept. She was quiet, breathing softly, with the sheet pulled up to her neck. He looked at the door to her room and smiled. She didn't know it yet, but she would soon she would know that she was no longer a child without a family. She would know that she was a daughter, and that she would never be alone again. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon, exactly at the scheduled time. Graham took a deep breath and went to open the door, trying to appear calm. Outside stood a middle-aged woman with grey hair tied in a bun and a black folder in her hand. Mr. Mackenzie, I'm Dr. Sarah Thompson, a social worker from the Department of Child and Family Services. Of course, please come in. We were expecting you. Dr. Thompson entered the house with measured steps, discreetly looking around. She wore a navy blue suit and flat shoes, had small glasses, and a professional but not cold expression. Thank you for having me. As we discussed on the phone, this is the first official visit of the adoption process. Graham closed the door and turned to her. Yes, of course, the children are in the living room. They walked to the living room where Toby, June, and Josie were sitting on the couch, clearly nervous. Toby was swinging his legs, June was biting her lower lip, and Josie was huddled between them, her light eyes wide. Hello, children, Dr. Thompson said with a gentle smile. I'm Sarah. I came here today to talk with you. Hi, Toby and June replied at the same time. Josie just nodded, without saying anything. Graham noticed the girl was scared. Her body was tense, as if ready to run. It was the first time he had seen her like this since she arrived. May I sit? The social worker asked, pointing to the armchair. Of course, Graham said. Would you like some coffee? Water? Water would be great, thank you. Graham went to the kitchen to get the water but kept an ear on the conversation in the living room. So you must be curious about why I'm here today, Dr. Thompson said. Is it because of Josie? June asked, straight to the point. It is. Your father wants to adopt Josie, so I need to understand how you feel about that. Graham returned with the glass of water and sat in a nearby chair, trying not to interfere. We want her to stay, Toby said with conviction. She's our sister now. Is that so? And you, June? What do you think? I want her to too. Josie teaches us cool songs and plays with us. Before she came, the house was too quiet. Dr. Thompson jotted something down in her notepad. And you, Josie, how do you feel living here? Josie looked at Graham before answering, as if asking for permission. It's good, she said softly. Just good. Can you tell me more? Josie was quiet for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with the questions. They're nice to me. They give me food and a place to sleep. The answer sounded more formal than she usually spoke, as if she were being cautious. And do you feel safe here? I do, Doctor. Thompson continued asking questions for another 20 minutes. She wanted to know about the house routine, how the children got along, about the rules and discipline. Toby and June answered naturally, but Josie remained tense. Now I'd like to speak with each of you separately. Is that okay? Graham's stomach tightened. Separately meant he couldn't help if Josie got nervous. Of course. Who would you like to start with? How about Toby? Toby got up excitedly, as if it were an adventure. Dr. Thompson took him to the kitchen, and Graham stayed in the living room with June and Josie. June seemed calm, swinging her legs and humming softly. But Josie was growing quieter, huddled in the corner of the couch. It's okay, Graham whispered to her. Don, it's just a conversation. Josie nodded but didn't look convinced. 15 minutes later, it was June's turn. She skipped after the social worker, happy as could be. Graham was left alone with Josie, who now looked terrified. Josie, look at me. She lifted her light eyes, and Graham saw fear there, real fear. Dr. Thompson is a good person. She just wants to make sure you're happy here. What if I say something wrong? There's no wrong thing to say, just tell the truth. What if they think I shouldn't stay? Graham knelt in front of her and held her small hands. That's not going to happen. You belong here, remember? When it was Josie's turn, she stood up slowly, as if walking to the gallows. Doctor. Thompson led her to the kitchen, and Graham was left alone in the living room, nervous. He could overhear snippets of the conversation. The social worker asked questions about where Josie lived before, about her mother, about how she felt in the new house. The girls' answers were short, cautious. After half an hour, they returned. Doctor. Thompson had a neutral, unreadable expression. Josie went straight back to the couch and curled up in the corner. Now I'd like to speak with you, Mr. Mackenzie. Graham and the social worker went to the office. She sat in the visitor's chair, he behind the desk. The children seem well adjusted, she began. Toby and June clearly adore Josie. They talk about her as if she's been their sister for years. That's how we feel too. Josie is more reserved, which is understandable. She's been through a lot of trauma. Graham nodded. She's getting better every day. She was even quieter at the beginning. Are you aware that adopting a child who has experienced abandonment and loss requires special care? I am. And I'm willing to do whatever is necessary. Dr. Thompson asked more questions about finances, plans for the future, and how Graham intended to handle potential difficulties. He answered honestly, explaining that he didn't have all the answers, but he had a lot of love to give. I will need to make a few more visits in the coming weeks, she finally said, and I'll want to speak with the children's teachers at school. Of course, whatever you need. When Dr. Thompson left, a strange silence fell over the house. Toby and June went back to playing normally, but Josie remained curled up on the couch, staring out the window. Graham sat down next to her. How was the talk? She asked a lot of questions. And did you answer? I tried, but I don't know if I answered right. Graham saw that she was trembling slightly. Josie, are you scared? She took a while to answer, but finally whispered, Are they going to take me away? The question broke Graham's heart. He knelt in front of her, looking into her light, fear-filled eyes. No, sweetie, they are not going to take you away. But what if they think I shouldn't stay? They just want to know if you're okay here, if you're happy, if you're safe. And I am. I know you are, and they'll see that too. Graham took a deep breath before saying the next words. Josie, do you know why the social worker came here? She shook her head no. Because I want to adopt you. I want you to stay with us, for real, forever. Her eyes widened. Adopt me. That's right. I want you to be my official daughter. I want your last name to be the same as ours. I want you to never have to worry about having a place to stay again. Josie was silent for a long moment, processing the information. You want me to be your real daughter? You already are. I just want the paperwork to say so too. It was as if a dam broke. Josie threw herself into Graham's arms and hugged him with all her might. It was a hug unlike any other, desperate, relieved, full of emotion. "I thought you would get tired of me," she sobbed into his shoulder. "Never. We will never get tired of you. I don't want to leave. You won't. This is your home now." They held each other for a long time. Graham felt the girl's tears soaking his shirt, and his own tears began to fall as well. When they finally separated, Josie wiped her face with the back of her hand. "So I don't have to run away anymore." The question shattered Graham's heart. He didn't even know she had been thinking of running away. "Never again. You're home, Josie. For real." She smiled for the first time since the social worker arrived. It was a relieved smile, as if a huge weight had been lifted from her small shoulders. "Can I call you Dad?" Graham felt a lump in his throat. "You can. I would love that. And can I call Toby and June my brother and sister? They already call you their sister, so we're a real family, the realest there is." That night at bedtime, Josie sang to Toby and June as always, but the music sounded different, lighter, happier, as if she had finally found where she belonged. Graham listened from the hallway, smiling. For the first time since the process began, he felt confident about the outcome. The following Monday, the phone rang in his office. It was Mr. Harrison, the lawyer. "Graham, I have an update on Josie's case. Good or bad?" "Well, complicated. We've located a biological relative, an aunt of Josie's." Graham felt the world stop around him. "An aunt?" "Yes. Margaret Collins. She's Josie's mother's sister. Apparently, she's been looking for the girl ever since she heard about her sister's death." Graham sat down heavily in his chair. He felt a tightness in his chest, a mixture of fear and despair. And now, what does this mean? It means she has legal rights to the child. As a blood relative, she has priority in the adoption process. But Josie is happy here. This is her family now. I understand, Graham, and we will fight for you, but we need to face the process with truth and calm. When is this aunt coming? She lives in another city, but she's already making arrangements to come. Probably next week. When Graham hung up, he sat in his office for a long time, staring out the window. From the backyard came the sound of Josie playing with Toby and June, laughing as if she didn't have a care in the world. She finally felt safe, finally understood she didn't have to run away, and now someone who could take her away was showing up. Graham didn't want to lose the girl. She was part of his family now, part of his heart. But at the same time, he knew he had to do what was best for Josie, even if it meant letting her go. He took a deep breath and prepared for one of the hardest conversations of his life, because he would have to tell Josie that an aunt she didn't know wanted to take her away. And he would have to hope that in the end, love would be stronger than blood. The doorbell rang on a Thursday morning. Graham's stomach tightened. He knew it was Margaret and Josie's aunt. For the past 3 days, since the lawyer called, the house had been tense. Josie had noticed something was wrong, but Graham still hadn't found the courage to tell her about the aunt. He took a deep breath and opened the door. Outside stood a woman in her 40s, with brown hair tied in a simple ponytail. She had kind eyes, similar to Josie's, and wore casual clothes, jeans, and a light blue blouse. In her hands, she carried a small purse and a paper bag. "Mr. Mackenzie, I'm Margaret Collins." "Margaret, please, come in." She entered the house with cautious steps, looking around with respectful curiosity. There was something calm about her, a serenity Graham hadn't expected. "Thank you for having me. I know this can't be easy." "It's not, but I understand you have rights." Margaret shook her head gently. "Rights are one thing. What's best for Josie is another." Graham led her to the living room, where Toby and June were watching cartoons. The children looked at the visitor with curiosity. "Kids, this is Margaret. She's Josie's aunt." "Hi," they both said, polite but wary. "Hello, are you Josie's siblings?" "We are," June replied firmly, as if defending her territory. "That's good." "She's told me a lot about you," Graham frowned. "She has. Have you two spoken already?" "On the phone, yesterday. The lawyer gave her my number." Graham felt a pang of irritation. No one had told him they had already spoken. "And where is she now?" "In the backyard, I think." She was a little nervous. Graham went to the back door and saw Josie sitting on the old swing, swaying slowly. She was looking at the ground, clearly deep in thought. "Josie, Margaret is here." She looked up, and Graham saw a mix of curiosity and fear in her eyes. "Does she look like my mum?" "A little. But you need to see for yourself." Josie stood up slowly and walked towards the house. When she saw Margaret in the living room, she stopped at the door, shyly. Margaret stood up too, and for a moment, the two just looked at each other. "Hi, Josie. I'm your Aunt Margaret." "Hi. You're bigger than I imagined. And prettier, too." Josie smiled a little but remained at the door. "Did you know my mum?" "I did. She was my younger sister." Margaret opened her purse and took out an old photo. It was a picture of two young girls, one blonde and one brunette, smiling at the camera. "This one is your mum," she said, pointing to the blonde girl. "And this is me." Josie approached slowly and took the photo, her eyes filled with tears. She was so young here. She was about 15. You have her smile. Josie gently ran her finger over the photo as if it was something sacred. "Can I keep it?" "Of course, I brought it for you." Margaret took something else from the bag, a small, worn notebook. "Hand this too. These are the songs your mom wrote when she was a teenager." Josie opened the notebook with reverence. The pages were filled with handwritten lyrics in delicate handwriting. She wrote songs. Many. She always had a talent for it. "You told me on the phone that you like to sing too." "I do, she taught me." Margaret smiled. "So the talent was passed on to you." Graham watched the scene, feeling a tightness in his chest. There was an obvious connection between them, a blood tie he couldn't compete with. "Margaret," he said, "would you like to have lunch with us? That way you can get to know Josie better." "I'd love to." Lunch was simple but tasty. Margaret told stories about her sister, about their childhood, about their family. Josie listened with fascination, asking questions about her mother that she had never had the chance to ask before. "Did she like chocolate ice cream?" she asked. "She loved it. She could eat a whole tub by herself." "Me too, and did she know how to swim?" "She did. She taught me when I was little." Graham saw how Josie lit up with each new piece of information about her mother. It was as if she were putting together a puzzle that had always been missing pieces. After lunch, the children went to play in the backyard. Margaret asked Josie to sing something. "Can I sing the one my mum taught me?" "Please do." Josie sang the song about the bridge that leads to the ones we love. Her voice filled the backyard, sweet and melodious. Margaret listened with tears in her eyes. "She sounds just like her when she was a child," she whispered to Graham. Toby and June joined in the song, singing the parts they already knew. Margaret watched how they interacted, how they cared for one another, how Josie was integrated into the family dynamic. "How long has she been living here?" she asked. "Almost 2 months. And how did she get here?" Graham told the story of the train, of how they met Josie, of how she adapted to the family. Margaret listened intently. "She seems happy." "She is." "Very. And you? How do you feel with her here?" Graham looked at the 3 children playing together in the backyard. "She completed our family. Before she arrived, the house was too quiet. Now it's alive again." Margaret nodded thoughtfully. May I speak with her alone for a few minutes?" "Of course." Graham called Toby and June inside, leaving Margaret and Josie in the backyard. He watched from the window, curious about what they were discussing. He saw Margaret kneel in front of Josie, speaking to her seriously. He saw Josie nod, sometimes smiling, sometimes looking worried. The conversation lasted about 20 minutes. When they came back inside, Margaret had a determined expression on her face. "Graham, may I speak with you?" They went to the kitchen, leaving the children in the living room. "I came here thinking I was going to take Josie with me," Margaret began. "She's my niece. She's all I have left of my sister." Graham's heart raced. But she has a home. She has love. She has a family that takes care of her." Margaret looked out the kitchen window, watching the children play. "My sister always wanted Josie to have stability, a real home. You are giving that to her." "We're trying." "No, you are succeeding." I saw how she looks at you, how you look at her. I saw how the other two treat her like a sister. Margaret turned to Graham. I don't want to take that away from her. I think my sister would be at peace seeing this. Graham couldn't believe what he was hearing. Are you sure? Completely. Josie told me she wants to stay. She said this is her home now. And you? Won't you miss her? I will. But can I visit sometimes, continue to be a part of her life? Of course, she needs to know her family's history. Margaret smiled, relieved. Then it settled. I'll sign the papers to make the adoption official. They returned to the living room, where Josie was visibly nervous. So, what did you decide? Margaret sat next to her on the couch. So I've decided that you should stay here. This is your family now. Josie looked at her in surprise. Really? You don't want to take me? I want you to be happy, and you are happy here. Josie threw her arms around Margaret, hugging her tightly. Thank you for understanding. But there's one condition, Margaret said, feigning seriousness. I need to come visit every now and then. Whenever you want, Josie shouted, excited. Margaret stayed until the late afternoon, talking with everyone, getting to know the family dynamic better. When it was time to leave, she took a delicate little bracelet from her purse. This was your mother's. I want you to have it. It was a simple bracelet with small musical charms. Did she wear it when she sang on the streets? She did. She said it brought her luck. Margaret put the bracelet on Josie's wrist, so you can remember that she still sings with you. Josie looked at the bracelet with adoration. I'll wear it always. And will you sing for me when I come to visit? Every song I know. Margaret said goodbye to everyone with warm hugs. Before leaving, she signed the documents Mr. Harrison had prepared, officially relinquishing her rights to Josie. When the door closed behind her, the house was silent for a moment. So it's official? Josie asked. It's official, Graham replied. You're our daughter now. And our sister, Toby and June added at the same time. Josie smiled, touching the new bracelet. I think my mum would be happy. I'm sure she would be, Graham said, hugging her. That night, Josie sang for Toby and June as always. But this time, Graham noticed something different in the music. There was a completeness to it, a piece that hadn't been there before, as if Josie had finally found where she belonged, for real and forever. 6 months after Margaret's visit, the envelope everyone was waiting for arrived. Graham took it from the mailbox and went inside, where the children were having breakfast in the kitchen. Guys, something important came. Toby, June, and Josie stopped eating and looked at him with anticipation. Josie was wearing her mother's bracelet, as she always did. Is it about the adoption? She asked, her voice a little anxious. Graham opened the envelope slowly and read aloud, Josie Mackenzie. The silence that followed was total. Then Josie shouted, Mackenzie! My name is Josie Mackenzie now. Officially, yes, you're my real daughter. Josie jumped from her chair and ran to Graham. Toby and June joined the hug, shouting with joy. Now we're real siblings, June celebrated. We always were, Josie said, laughing and crying at the same time. But now everyone knows it. Graham held his 3 children in his arms, feeling complete happiness. Do you know what this means? He said. It means we need to celebrate. It was Josie who had the idea. Let's put on a show, right here in the backyard. A show? Graham asked. Yes, with music, posters, everything. To show that now I'm officially part of the Mackenzie family. Toby and June loved the idea. They spent the whole afternoon preparing everything. They made colorful posters with crayons and markers, writing the Mackenzie family and music today. June drew musical notes around the words. Toby made a banner from an old sheet and paint, where he wrote in crooked but loving letters, Music from our house today. Josie rehearsed the songs she would sing, including some from her mother's notebook that Margaret had brought. She also taught simple harmonies to Toby and June. Graham helped by hanging the banner between 2 trees and placing the posters along the fence. The backyard looked like a small festival. The show is about to begin, Josie announced. Graham sat in a chair as the official audience. He was the only spectator, but they acted as if it were a sold-out theater. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Toby, playing the role of the announcer, "the Mackenzie family is proud to present Josie Mackenzie." June clapped enthusiastically. Josie took an exaggerated bow and began to sing. She sang the little bird song she learned from her mother. Then she sang the song about the bridge that leads to the ones we love. Toby and June joined in on some parts, creating simple but beautiful harmonies. Graham watched with his heart overflowing with joy. 6 months ago, he was a single father trying to care for 2 sad children. Now he had a complete family, full of music and laughter. "Bravo, excellent," he applauded when they finished. "Did you really like it?" Josie asked. "It was the best show I've ever seen." As evening fell and the children grew tired, Graham led them inside. At bedtime, Josie sang for Toby and June as she always did. "Today is the first day I get to sing as Josie Mackenzie," she said before she began. "And we get to listen as real Mackenzie siblings," June replied. Graham listened from the hallway, smiling. After the children fell asleep, he went to the living room and picked up the new photo he had framed last week, the 4 of them together in the backyard, smiling. Graham hung the photo on the living room wall, next to the other family pictures. Underneath, he taped a piece of paper where he had handwritten a phrase that summed it all up. The girls sang. The house listened. "Now everyone sleeps in peace." He looked at the photo for a while, thinking about how life can change so unexpectedly, all because of a girl with light eyes who offered to sing on a train. Graham turned off the living room lights and went to his room. Before falling asleep, he listened to the silence of the house, but it was no longer the empty silence from before. It was the silence of people sleeping peacefully because they know they are loved. The next morning, Graham woke to the familiar sound of voices in the kitchen. Josie was helping Toby and June with breakfast, humming softly. "Good morning, Mackenzie family," he said, making the children laugh. "Good morning, Dad," the 3 of them replied at the same time. And Graham knew that this was the most beautiful music he had ever heard in his life. The music of a family that found each other and chose to stay together forever. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.